we talk about and identify what makes this person up, and they need to have our core values, believe in our company. And I've deleted all these, right? Because it's a template, right? One of the principles we instill is extreme ownership, warrior ethos, standard of excellence, and our definition of success. What their mission is specifically, what the job description is, who they report to, what are their accountabilities, what are their responsibilities, what are their prerequisites, what is the expectation, who are the client, who are the internal, external customer, what their personal KPIs are, critical factors to success, behavioral capabilities from a motivational standpoint. Like these are coming off the disc, right? We want a high driver because we use multiple personality assessments. But one of the things here, this I think comes from PI. This comes from the disc. We want them high driving, high active, high poised, very systematic, high economical driver. Secondary motivator could be political. Capabilities, attributes, and skills. This is us defining our specific avatar that we know performs, right? Do they have all these things? KPI scorecard, and then critical competencies, right? Green is most important, yellow is secondary, red, red is most urgent, green second urgent, yellow the last. Maybe, I think. Anyway, they're ranked in order. But this very specifically outlines who we're looking for and what is their makeup, their personality makeup from a behavioral study standpoint, right? So super detailed, and there's some other stuff that I removed off of here, but I'll share this with you guys, and hopefully it gives you kind of a framework to work within as you go about building out and identifying that avatar. Does that make sense?
100%.
See how to get it in this chat. Any questions around that? I know I skimmed through it rather quickly.
Yeah, Howard. So what questions do you ask? Well, I actually have two. So to figure out the disc profile or whatever, how much weight are you holding to that? Is it like, okay, if they're not a high D, high I, they're probably not going to be a good fit? Or
I think it's highly dependent upon your company, right? Your systems, your processes, your management style. There is no definitive answer to that. Like a Maverick, for example, which is from the predictive index, a Maverick and a venturer. When you're early and a little primitive in your organization, you don't have systems, you don't have processes, there's not, intensive management and coaching. A Maverick and a venturer can, they're the cowboys, right? They're the gunslingers. They can go out and make magic happen. But as you evolve and you get documented systems and processes that have to be followed, you have crystal clear expectations of what performance is or isn't, they're going to start to feel like they're micromanaged, right? So now in the evolution of our company, what season we're in, I'll look at a Maverick or a venturer, but they're definitely not going to be my first choice because I know they're going to come in and they're going to be a nightmare. They're never going to update the CRM. They're very difficult to manage, right? Most entrepreneurs that lead companies are Mavericks, venturers, captains. They play by their own rules, right? A captain, he likes to follow rules if he makes them. Maverick has a complete disregard for rules. Venture, whatever. So I think it's simply a data point, and you have to understand yourself and your management style and what season your business is. And it's not the end all be all either, and so it's just a data point which should allow you to ask better questions about their behavioral tendencies. I kind of look at it as a great starting point for conversation.
Yeah. And then one more question on that is, so for example, I want to figure out prior success. How much prior success do they have in another company? So right now I'm just asking, how many reps were there? How did you perform on that? Is there any other questions that you could ask? Because that's a huge thing we found is like prior success obviously will show that you will likely be successful in our role. there any other questions that you've asked to kind of dig that out?
100%, 100%. And we're pretty, I don't want to say sneaky about it, but we work a really good process, right? Like you have to work a really good process to get the seller to tell you that she's divorcing her husband because he gave her a venereal disease and cheated with the secretary. She ain't gonna just tell you that on the first interview. But through working a process, we can eventually get to that. We need to know through working a process how much money, cash, pre-tax has went into their account over the past 12 months. And that is a very indicative tell of success, right? And
Yeah.
one way that we do that is, I think this is illegal in most states, but we just say, hey, we might do this. We never actually do it. Is we got to have proof of income towards the end of the process if you make it all the way through. What's that mean? Well, I need a copy of your W-2. Most people, because we ask them first, hey, how much money did you make last year? And they say $285,000. All right, I'm going to need a copy of your W-2. Later down, we might request that. Would you be able to provide it? And here comes the stutter, right? And so, but we want to know how much did they make? And there's different ways that you can get around that, right? You can kind of say, figure out what their expenses are. Man, well, tell me about your life. Do you own a house or do you rent a house? Why haven't you bought a house? Is home ownership a goal? Yeah, one day. Okay, what kind of time frame are you looking at there? Well, a couple years. And maybe they say, well, I'm working on my credit score, which tells us they're irresponsible. Or maybe they say, or not necessarily 100% irresponsible, but it opens up to ask better questions. Well, what happened? Why is your credit score bad? Well, I got a divorce. My wife took me for everything. Okay, makes sense. Or, I have a repo on my car. Well, why'd your car get repoed? You automatically know if the dude's car got repoed, he ain't making no freaking money, right? Because a successful sales rep ain't letting that brand new Benz get repoed, right? And so
Yeah.
it's just figuring out how to ask those types of questions and taking your time on the interview to truly make the first person feel comfortable. Then you build trust. Then they begin to open up.
And you asked that on the initial interview?
No, that would be on the top grading interview. It's about an hour long. We kind of get into that.
Okay. Cool. That's helpful. Thank you.
What else we got?
I got a like lead management related question too.
Okay.
So kind of like Ray was saying, based off like the advice you gave and like call before, you were saying like to ramp up to avoid those highs and lows. Anyway, so I I was going to hire a new LM anyway. I had to replace a guy that I already had. So anyways, long story short, I'm stuck with two new LMs and they're both captains. Um so I guess my question is like, how would you, obviously that's not an ideal dynamic to be training like two people at once. Well, at least it's not for me, with the size of my company. How would you go about like onboarding those individuals? Like,
Um, that's a tough question to give you like an exact step-by-step answer.
mm,
I don't know what training material, what systems, what processes, what CRM, but what I would tell you, train them both at the same time, right? I would probably spend the first hour or so with them. And one thing to remember when we're training people is whatever you teach them, they're only going to, on average, retain 10 to 15% in an applicable manner, right? So if you go out and you teach me, how to take a bike apart and put it back together, unless I'm an anomaly, I'm going to retain about 10% of what you just taught me without needing some type of help, guidance, or a very long time to figure it out if I'm of high intelligence. And so we have to remember that. So we want training in smaller, shorter doses. And I like to mix training. How do we apply it yourself, go watch it done. Training, how do we apply it, real life scenario, apply it yourself, go watch it be done. And you just kind of recycle that until they've grasped the concept, and then you move on to the next concept.
Got it. So being that that's the case, the 10 to 15%, what would you be like focused on specifically?
Well, what do you think is the most crucial part of their job?
Sales, finding, qualifying motivated sellers.
Yeah, most of our CRMs are pretty intuitive. Well, I'm gonna spend the bulk of my time in the beginning is they need to understand from a fundamental standpoint the company as a whole, right? They need to know the life cycle of a lead from inception to cash realized. What does that look like? Then they need to know how do they find success in their job? What is their critical number? They need to understand how they drive those numbers to find success. And then they need to get into the strategy and the skill set of how to go do the action.
Okay.
And then I give them access to the CRM and say, hey, go play around in this later. Go watch so and so. You know,
Got you.
the one thing that I would encourage you to do as well is as you are training them, there's a system called the camera recorder method, right? Where effectively you record everything that you do. That way you don't have to go do it again. And so if you're giving training and having to teach a lead manager how to input a lead, how to create an appointment, how to do this, how to do that, you got to train a video and you can just say, hey, go watch this video. And you saved yourself 20 minutes every time you have to teach that task. If you're training people on comps, right? Comp 20 properties in front of your sales reps. Every time you comp every Friday, record it. We record every one of our trainings every single day. And then they're filed appropriately, labeled appropriately, and we're building an educational library, which saves me hours and hours and hours of training time when we have somebody new and we're trying to get them up to speed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's see. Currently, we use Asana, but I'm probably going to be switching to Trainual here shortly. Because I'm going to train it and then I'm going to sell it. And you can buy it. But no, I'm building a training library right now. Like it's in Asana. They have the tasks that they have to execute, and there's a link to the Google Drive to go watch the video. As time moves on, it'll evolve into like a Trainual platform where they have a login. I can see the completion of each video. It's a pretty neat platform. It's pretty inexpensive, and it's pretty robust. And you can track the employee journey through it. You can build quizzes inside of it, and make sure that they have an understanding of each lesson. Like, hey, here's 3 lessons. Now here's a quick quiz, and it scores them and sends a report to the boss. So it's pretty neat.
What was that called again, Ren? Trainual?
Trainual. Affiliate code REN. I'm just kidding.
Send it over, bro.
What platform are you using? Yeah, Loom for the most part. So a couple different places like Zoom, any trainings, like I record everything like 4 different ways. I have a camera guy that, if I'm in my office, he records every conversation I have all day, every day. 80% of my meetings are on Zoom. They're always recorded. And then in the mornings when we're doing our sales training, they're recorded. All of my everything I do is recorded and then filed to build a master training library as well as produce content. and it's not that hard to set up. And it's amazing, how much time having that training library, right? It's like, imagine you going to college and taking an economics class with no textbook, and every day the teacher has to teach the lesson and then write out the lesson in the textbook chapters for you to go read. That's what we're having to do when we don't have textbooks, PDF documents, training videos. Every time we have a new employee come in, we have to write the chapters of the book, which for most of us that are business owners, that is not what fills us up. Right. So do it once and don't do it again. They actually say that you should make one training video 3 times, because each time there'll be a different contextual piece or a different this or a different that comes into it. So, comp one property, go comp it 3 different times, load it up. If you're going to complete a contract, go execute a contract 3 different times on 3 different addresses. There's your contract execution course. If you're going to input a lead into the system, 3 different leads, 3 different inputs, 3 different conversions, there you go. Because you will narrate or dictate or navigate a little different every single time, and it gives a whole picture.
I got a follow-up question for that. So I have a good bit of training material, like you mentioned, recording everything. It could definitely be filed a lot better, like in my Google Drive or whatever the case is. But I feel like sometimes I'm like, hey, like watch this video or whatever the case is, and then whatever, check in with them, they watch it. Like, how do you make sure that it like sticks? Like, what's that, like the checks and balances to say, okay, I told you to watch the comp video or whatever, we went through the training, like you still don't know how to comp, or like something like that.
Yep. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that fall into that, right? So you have to take that extreme ownership mindset that it's your responsibility to provide them with the materials to train around, to make sure that it is conclusive so that they can get good fundamental understanding of the training, and then to make sure that they execute and that they retain it and that they can go out and, conceptualize it in the field, if you will. And it's all around conversation and touch points, right? One way that we train on comps is they watch the video, and then I give them, 5 addresses, and I'm like, hey, go run ARVs and comps on these and see what you got. I know the ARVs, I know the repair costs on the properties because I send the same 5 properties to every acquisition manager. And then if they're on point, they're on point. If they're off point, we go back and coach and train around it and find out where the communication is failing to be effective.
Gotcha.
What else we got? I'll take that as we're really busy taking notes from all that.
Yeah, I don't have any question, Rand. This is really helpful for me. I'm in the process of hiring another lead manager right now. Just kind of figuring out your process. I think last time you mentioning that you go through a DISC personality type, and then that's when you take it to the next steps, right? So for a lead manager, what is that avatar that you look for in terms of personality wise?
It can be very similar to, so one thing, are you hiring onshore or offshore lead managers?
Onshore.
Onshore, okay. Because for those of you that are hiring offshore, you have to be careful giving assessments in a language that is not native to the candidate. So for example, if you were hiring somebody, in the Philippines, they will not score as well or as true, if you will, if they don't have a mastery of English, right? They would do better and you would get a more pure and raw understanding of who they are if you were able to give that assessment in their native language, right? And I think there's some tools that will translate and things like that. So that's one precautionary measure. But in respect to lead manager, like on a disc, for example, high I, high C, they need to be patient, understanding, empathetic, love people, not overly hard charger, right? High on influence, high on what is the C? Caution. Making sure that they are cautious to go over the details, to ask all the questions, to keep them on the phone as long as possible, where kind of a hardcore closer is almost the complete opposite of that a lot of times, especially in the earlier evolution of a sales organization.
Cool. Got it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Ran a couple, just like a couple more questions from the call earlier. You said you do a TO, like you'll take, which I assume means a takeover, but I could be wrong. Yeah. So there's some calls. My sales style is much more aggressive than the guy that I have right now. So he's like, oh, I don't want to put any pressure right now because I feel like they're right there. But I could hop on and just close it. And so, one, do you pay anything for when you do that? Because I've done that in the past where I just go in, I'm like, dude, I'll pay you 5%, but let me close it. And then two, at what point do you say, all right, man, like you're not like, you know that they could close it if they put a little bit of pressure, but they want to be more like, yeah, go talk to your wife and then get back to me. At what point do you just take it?
Yeah. So that's a great question. To your first point, I never take their commissions, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because when you do, they will begin to hide things from you.
Yeah.
Right? They will begin to fabricate notes in the system, and it creates the opposite effect of what we want. We want more contracts, and we think, hey, if I have to go in and close it, well, you didn't earn all the commissions. Well, the truth is you will get more contracts, build more trust, and have them be more transparent with you when they come to you and you help them and then reward them for coming to you to create that coaching moment that allows the company to subsequently get the contract. But
So you
if
pay
they,
them full commission?
sure.
Okay.
But if they feel, hey, if I bring this to John, like maybe I get it in a week or two, he's talking to his wife, kind of on the fence. Like when you go to do that pipeline pickup, he's going to hide it from you because you are aggressive. And he knows if you see a contract that you can go get, you're going to go get it. And then he's only going to make half commission. But if he hides it from you, two things happen. Maybe he gets it in 2 weeks, or maybe a competitor comes in and he doesn't get it. And then a coaching opportunity is never created for improvement from him because now he's scared to come to you and say, hey, I'm stuck here. I need help.
It's true.
Okay. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And then as far as timelines, it varies. I'll say I won't let it be a negotiation review any longer than 10 days. But, if we get, so we meet every week and review their pipeline in some shape, form, or fashion. And if it's still there, at that second meeting, I'm getting a little aggressive forcing the activities with them. Right? We're going to come back. We're going to give talk tracks. Hey, what's going on here? And I'm asking, do you want me to close it? Sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they'll say, no, I got it. And if they got it, okay, what are the roadblocks? What are your talk tracks to overcome those roadblocks? What do you have to do to get this deal closed? And when are you going to get it closed by? And then if they say something that is acceptable, like, look, by the next time we do this pipeline review, you're going to have a contract or you're going to get on the phone with them. Or I'm going to get this in 2 to 3 days. Or if they say, man, I don't know what we're waiting on here, I'm just going to go ahead and call. That makes sense.
And when it does 100%. And so, I mean, you sound like you're probably a pretty aggressive salesperson, like when you're on the phone, like you're going to fight for it. But when you see someone give up and objection handling pretty early, like there's objections that we can overcome with sales, and then there's logistical objections that we can't. And so if you just see him go in, like, yeah, I need to think about it, for example, and he knows a framework on how to overcome like a think about it objection, or a rep knows a framework on how to overcome that objection, and they don't. And so like they like they almost just, okay, cool. Like when's a good time to reconnect after you think about it? You just leave it at that. How are you addressing that? The reason I ask is I asked my the guy that trains me on sales. He's got like a huge sales team. He's like, oh, just call them out in the group. I'm like, I don't know if that's the best way. So how are you addressing that when you see like they could fight for it, but maybe they didn't?
Yeah. So there's two scenarios in which that would come to light. One, during a call breakdown, a team call breakdown, and then they quote unquote do get called out in a group setting, but I'm not being aggressive in that at all.
Okay.
Right. I'm I'm coming from a place of love and coaching, and hoping that they just have yet to develop the tools in their toolbox to overcome that. We may think they have the framework, but obviously they didn't have it then, or they would have used it. Right. So we're going to coach to it, and we're going to, make sure that next time we go back and we listen for that objection, they leverage the tools from the training that they're taking to the coaching and getting 1% better each and every call.